All right, welcome in. I'm the Kodiak, and today I'm here to talk about my top 5 free agents for the Denver Broncos in the 2025 offseason. But before we get into it, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're not already. You can always wait until the end. Hopefully, I'll have earned it. My comment question of the day is: do you want the Broncos to splurge in free agency, or do you want them to go with budget signings? So follow me on Twitter if you like what I have to say on here at Kodiak Broncos. Let's dive right into it. So before we start talking about this, I just want to say something. You're probably going to be disappointed by the guys I really, really want in free agency simply because I don't think the Broncos are in a position to splurge. And I don't view a lot of the guys in free agency right now as true difference makers for the Denver Broncos. But if there's one guy I want above all else, it is Dre Greenlaw, inside linebacker who just played for the San Francisco 49ers. So he's the number one guy on my big board. He's the number one guy I want just because I think he just makes so much sense. He makes so much sense with. We have nothing at inside linebacker. We have been complaining for years that we want a guy who can cover tight ends over the middle of the field. We have Brock Bowers in our division. Uh, we've seen Travis Kelce dominate for years. We've seen Antonio Gates dominate for years. We've seen Tony Gonzalez dominate for years. And it just seems like the AFC West always has these dudes that are absolutely cracked at the tight end position. So how do you counter that? Well, you have a guy who can cover them. And with Dre Greenlaw, that is what you are getting. So he makes sense there. And he's also not like a highly valued guy, I guess, with contract projections. I mean, I don't understand why he was only projected a 1 year, $6 million deal. Pretty much everywhere I've seen does not have him getting a huge contract. Maybe it's because teams are still scared because of the injury, but make no mistake about it. Greenlaw has been one of the heartbeats of the San Francisco 49ers defense. And, I feel way less comfortable about building inside linebacker through the draft as opposed to tight end, running back, safety, and defensive tackle. Now, we already tried the inside linebacker thing with Drew Sanders, and it looks like that hasn't really materialized into anything. I know he was hurt this past year, but, he will get a full offseason, and we will see what he can do there. But either way, Dre Greenlaw just makes way too much sense for us. And, you look at the 49ers defense, they were really good with him. Every single time that they've had a top defense within the past few years, him showing out has been the common denominator. They weren't themselves this past year. And I think a large part of that is due to the fact that they were missing Dre Greenlaw. They were missing him in the middle of the field. They were missing his violence, his intensity, his passion, which made him a fan favorite for the San Francisco 49ers fan base. And honestly, we need a stalwart in the middle. We need a dude who can get nasty. We need like a guy who can mix it up with the other team because despite the fact that we have a very good defense, we need a guy who will keep the team together when things are starting to fall apart. Like a guy like Greenlaw really, really would have helped us in the second half of the Chargers game this year. And it's not because, we could have used his coverage ability or anything like that, even though, we saw Barton and Strnad get absolutely toasted that game. But have a guy that can keep the team together, playing with so much passion, playing with intensity. Like I've said this whole offseason, I want to sign guys that hate the Raiders. I want to sign guys that hate the Chiefs. And there's no better way to get the best of both worlds with that than a guy who played on the 49ers. So yeah, he also has an 87.4 coverage grade over the past 3 years. It did dip a little bit, but I can also chalk that up due to the fact that he came back from that Achilles injury and he's going to get a full offseason. And yeah, I understand that he is sort of like a mystery box, and that could be something that scares teams away based on the fact that he did have that Achilles injury like a little over a year ago. I mean, pretty sure exactly a year ago at this time, but he'll have a year and a half before week 1 of 2025 to fully recover, and I see no reason why he can't. So yeah, Dre Greenlaw, my number 1 free agent on our big board this year. Number 2, Juwan Johnson. So honestly, I could see this happening, and honestly, I think it's so like pencil in right now for the Broncos that I'd almost be surprised if it didn't end up happening. But yeah, with Juwan Johnson in particular, it feels like that the Saints have not gotten the best out of him because they've had a really, really tricky quarterback situation since 2022. I know they had Andy Dalton, they had some other dudes sprinkled in there, but Derek Carr has not gotten the best out of him. That's just the bottom line. Even with no Olave, even with no Shaheed for a large part of this year, it felt like him and Carr just never really could get something going. And I know that we did see Rattler a little bit, we did see a Hayner for a little bit, and an anemic passing offense is just not something that I don't think Juwan Johnson wanted for being in his contract year or whatever. But I think over the middle of the field, Juwan Johnson would be a great, respectable option to fix the passing game. I'm not going to say he's going to revamp our whole offense because Saints fans actually don't really like him that much, and they're going to be pretty happy when he moves on because their big complaint is he has a lot of drops. But just the fact that you can have a guy who's respectable over the middle of the field as a weapon and you can, flex him out to the slot or whatever. Yeah, I think that that is something that the Broncos really, really need, and it's going to fix a lot of issues in the run game. It's going to fix a lot of issues in the pass game as well. The fact that you have to respect Juwan Johnson over the middle of the field is going to make us way tougher to play defense against. And listen, he's had really weird utilization in 2024, but also the Saints have had a logjam of tight ends. Like, I know they've had Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau, Jimmy Graham the past few years, which may have hindered Juwan Johnson from unlocking what he is fully capable of as well. So his projected contract is 3 years, $29 million with $17 million guaranteed. Once again, which is essentially a 2-year deal with 85 or 8.5 million per year, because contracts and their total value are kind of fake in the NFL. You just look at the guaranteed money. That's basically what it is. And he's good enough to where he won't leave us then, but he's not good enough to deter us from drafting a tight end. Like, he can still make the tough catches over the middle. He's still a matchup nightmare. He's a tough guy to cover, quite frankly. And for a guy who would fit so well in our offense, and Sean Payton would move him around, try to find the mismatches, he is useful even if we do bring in a guy like Tyler Warren, even if we do bring in a guy like Colson Loveland. That's why I think Juwan Johnson does fit for us as well. I actually like him better than Gesicki because Gesicki, his snap share on the Bengals this past year was, sub 50% in a lot of his games, pretty much all of them, which indicates that he might not be a true difference maker on first and second down. Like, he's nothing more than just a big slot. And I do respect Juwan Johnson a little more for having a little bit more blocking ability. But yeah. So yeah, I know Juwan Johnson is not as big as Gesicki, but still, I think that he would offer a lot for us as well. Number 3, Cooper Kupp. So it is important to acknowledge that you are not getting the Cooper Kupp. 3 years ago, or 4 years ago at this point, he ended up winning the 2021 Triple Crown. He got a Super Bowl ring. Matt Stafford and him basically had a connection that looked unstoppable. But over the past 2-3 years, those days are long gone. Like, his injuries and his body have caught up to him. But it is also very hard to see where Cooper Kupp does not fit in with us. So even though I just told you that he's been often injured and he's not the same player he once was, that is not me saying that he would not be a great signing for the Broncos. It's just me not trying to delude myself into thinking that he's going to be what he once was as well. So yeah, he's a versatile dude. Like, you can line him up outside, you can line him up inside. He can win at both those positions still. Like, even in this past year when Puka went out in week 1 against Detroit, Cooper Kupp still had 21 targets. And listen, the effort is something that would get him on the field here. You would be a great mentor to our dudes. And also, he's an outstanding run blocker. So, you want to fix the run game in a variety of facets, and there's 80 million problems with it that are not the fault of one particular position or guy. Cooper Kupp could be a shot in the arm to the run game as well. And he's not going to cost that much in terms of trade since he's had a lot of injuries. Like, I don't think he's going to get moved for anything more than a conditional 2026 day 3 pick. And I do think the Rams are going to have to eat some cap as well. But, the main argument I see for bringing him in is you bring him in as a mentor for Bo and for the other wide receivers so they can see how he can prepare and how he carries himself. And, Cooper Kupp could be the secret to unlocking a guy like Troy Franklin, who struggled a lot this year. And listen, if he's not performing, which, that is very well within the realm of possibilities, he will not make a big deal out of losing snaps. I think conservatively, I would expect around 500 to 550 yards if he's signed. And that's not a lot at all. That's like 35, 40 yards a game. So, yeah, I think that's definitely doable for a guy like Cooper Kupp. And, he will be a option, once again, that other teams have to respect. And yeah, he'd just be a good culture guy. He would definitely fit in with the orange and blue and what Sean Payton is trying to build as well. Number 4, Ty Johnson. So the running back room, in my opinion, deserves to be completely overhauled this offseason. Javonte, see ya. Jalil or Estime, I would only keep one of them, honestly. Like, I know that sounds, maybe I'm, smoking crack there, but honestly, I think there's only room for one of them, and I want to bring in a free agent piece, but I also want to bring in a guy during the draft who can actually give us a lot of juice. And Ty Johnson, once again, he is one of those complementary pieces. Now, he's a smart third down back with some juice. Like Buffalo views him very highly. Josh Allen, he talked about him as being one of the best third down backs in the league after our wild card game against them. And that's not me to say that he is. Ty Johnson is the best third down back in the league, but the whole organization loves him. He's also another fan favorite there this year. Ty Johnson, he's taken a few screens to the house. So if he can house call a screen at least once or twice next year, I will consider that a huge win for this team. And once again, just another guy who fits in well with being a Denver Bronco. So I can't find a contract projection for him right now, but I don't see him breaking the bank either. Like maybe if he hits the open market, he gets like a 1 year, $3 million deal, 1 year, $3.5 million deal, or like a 2 year, $7 million deal at most, or something like that. But yeah, ultimately, because he is limited as a first, second down guy. But like I said, as a third down guy, I think that's the role you are bringing him in for. You're bringing him in, kind of to be what you brought Samaje Perine in for a couple years ago. And yeah, so here are some other running backs that I would want in free agency that I don't think are going to be available. Jordan Mason and Jalen Warren are both restricted free agents this year. I'd be happy with bringing them both in. I would actually be really happy if we could land either of those, but ultimately those guys are still subject to some team control. Rico Dowdle, this is another guy who I think would give you a little bit more juice on first and second down as well as having good hands out of the backfield. So yeah, Darius Slayton. So this is basically a reroll on what you thought Josh Reynolds would be here. And I agree with the idea of adding another wide receiver, because if we were to go into next year with just Courtland Sutton, if we were to go into next year with just Marvin Mims and just Vele and just Troy Franklin, and those four guys being relied upon to deliver in consistent moments, I would not be panicking. Granted, you do need to fill out some of those spots in your roster because you do, injuries happen and you do need some depth there. But ultimately, we still need to add another body. We still need to add another guy who you think can truly be kind of a difference maker. And I love Darius Slayton's game. I love the fact that you can line him up in the boundary, and I love that he has an intermediate pass. He has a really good intermediate game. Like, I love watching him run dig routes over the middle of the field, and he would give us some speed on the boundary. And then you could allow Franklin and Vele and Mims just to do all their work on the inside. But talking about Darius Slayton, he has been a very steady vet presence for the Giants. The fact that he's gotten 700 yards 4 out of his past 6 years of his career, with Daniel Jones being his quarterback for pretty much the entirety of that, that is nothing short of a miracle. And that is absolutely impressive. And, David Talks Broncos was comparing Darius Slayton to Emmanuel Sanders, where, with Emmanuel Sanders, he was always the third wide receiver on those Steelers teams. They had Mike Wallace, they had Antonio Brown, but Emmanuel Sanders was kind of the odd one out. If that's something the Broncos want to bank on unlocking, then I would be completely fine with that. Because like I said, we do need to add another body, but I wouldn't be panicking if we didn't spend a lot of capital on one. And this is the perfect opportunity to get the best of both worlds here. So yeah, that is basically my free agency big board. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.